like to call the meeting to order. This is the Tuesday, March 26, 2024 meeting of the Select Board. I'm Beth Cassavant. I am the chair. We'll take a moment to just go around and introduce ourselves.
Teresa Flynn.
Michelle Conlon.
John Samia.
Carlos Garcia.
Kevin Mizikar, Town Manager.
Justin Dobson, Assistant to Town Manager.
Great. Okay, the first item on our agenda is to approve the bills, payrolls, and warrants.
Move approval.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Item number 2 is to review and act to approve the minutes of February 26, 2024, which was a workshop with the school committee, March 11th, 2024, which was another workshop with the school committee, and March 12th, 2024, which was a meeting.
Move approval.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Item number 3 is announcements and reports. Board members, do you have anything this evening to report on? Okay.
Madam Chair, I don't have anything to report. I just wanted to thank all of the town staff that participated in the Finance Committee hearings on Thursday evening and on Saturday. I think, we always look at our town leader, Kevin Mizikar, and Superintendent of Schools, Dr. Sawyer, but it was really great to see all of the various department heads and really showcase the talent that we have in town. So it was a lot of preparation and work on their behalf, and I just wanted to acknowledge it.
Yeah, great. Thank you for doing that. It was definitely an informative session on Thursday and on Saturday, and those can all be viewed on Shrewsbury Media Connection on their YouTube or on their website, so hopefully people will take advantage of that. Item number 4 is the town manager's report. Mr. Mizikar.
I don't have anything from this part of the meeting. I'll include it in other aspects. Thank you.
Okay. Item number 5 is public comment pursuant to Select Board Policy 31 to offer citizens the opportunity to provide public comments during Select Board meetings on matters within the board's authority. No one has signed up for public comment this evening, but in the future, if someone is interested in addressing the board during this time, just let the office of the Select Board and town manager know by Monday, the day before our meeting at noon. Item number 6 is a meeting with Town Moderator Jim Kane to review the May 20th, 2024 annual town meeting. Good evening, Mr.
Good evening.
Kane.
How's everyone?
Well, how are you?
Great. Thank you for your time this evening. I know you've got a full agenda, so I'll be very brief. I did want to update the board and do so in a very public way on an effort that we undertook in February. You may recall that at the close of the annual town meeting, I announced that I would set up a couple of sessions so people who members of town meeting could come forward and offer any ideas as to how we operate town meeting. Been basically doing it in the same basic fashion in the same room for how many years now. So we had 2 evenings, February 8th at 6 o'clock at the Oak Middle School, which was purposefully scheduled just before Ms. Flynn's effort to spur interest in running for town meeting. So if people were coming out, they would come out once. And at that time, that evening, we got 6 members of town meeting who came forward and offered a variety of observations. And we then had 2 folks who sent in their ideas via email as a result of not being able to attend the gathering. I would like to thank Mr. Mizikar. I think it was Taylor who took the time to send out an invitational email and then a letter to ensure that every member of town meeting was invited to the 2 gatherings. Overall, we discussed the location, the sound, et cetera, et cetera. I then held a follow-up meeting later in February on the 17th on a Saturday morning at the fire station. Had no visitors at that time. So my basic takeaway from review of the emails and from the conversations that we had was that one way that we could enhance an aspect of town meeting is to have on the screen behind me the warrant article in which we're focusing. Perhaps we start with the basic intro slide, a couple of rules, what have you. We'll work through those details. To date, as you know, when we use the slide projector, as I call it, whatever it is, Kevin, we have to clear the stage. Mm-hmm. The school department had undertaken an effort some number of years ago to explore how you could modernize it. And the reality, folks, is with public bidding and the need to upgrade, et cetera, you're looking at $40,000, $50,000, perhaps $60,000. So certainly as moderator, I'm not going to ask the manager to propose a transfer for that for, let's say, 3 evenings in the spring and maybe 1 or 2 in the fall. So as an institutionalist, I have been going through this internal machination of changing the stage. And for me, that's a big deal, because you folks set the warrant, right? You call the meeting. So I think you all should be right there. Any questions, you're all right there. And then in the spring, of course, we have the report of the Finance Committee. And though there haven't been many questions that I can really think of, you have the whole Finance Committee here to defend their report. Reality is, the screen's cockeyed. I don't want to spend money to center it. In order to elevate it, it's thousands of dollars. So I think what we're going to do this year, Kevin, Mr. Baldinger, and myself are going to go down some Friday and lay out chairs. We're probably going to alter the setup and ask that the chair and vice chair of the select board, I got it right on one time, the manager, myself, the clerk, and then the chair and vice chair of the Finance Committee will be on the stage, so that we can use that screen, so we can track through each warrant article and have it on the screen for those attending town meeting. We'll see. We'll see how it all lines up. We will still, because I will not have elected and appointed people with their back to town meeting members, we will then have a second set of tables down below, so people, again, will face. I find turning the back of the elected and appointed to be utterly disrespectful. So we'll work through these machinations, and we'll have a nice layout for in May. But I think it's time that we do this in order to not cause the disruption when we have a zoning matter of significance. I don't want to have everybody coming and going, breaking up the whole flow of the meeting. And I think we can pull this off. And we'll go do a test run with the team in a couple of weeks on a Friday and see how it actually will pan out in person. But I just wanted to pass that along as a public update of what we did. We followed up on the representation, had a couple of meetings, had some good feedback from those in attendance, and as I said, 2 emails. And that's basically my update as we go into Monday, May 20th. Right, Kevin?
That's correct.
Bingo. Any questions for me?
Any questions for the moderator?
May I just clarify, did you say you got a total of 8 responses, like 6 in person and 2
6
in
came
writing?
to the pre-meeting, to the meeting that you organized. And then I got 2 emails from people who were unable to attend either.
Out of 240
Yep.
meeting members.
Yep.
May I ask a follow-up question?
Of course.
Are you going to have any formal guidance for town staff? I know there was some feedback where.
Well, the
They weren't
manager
saying
will
anything.
handle them responsibly, but I think, as we saw in the last annual, they all were down front, so that any questions, they could immediately get to a microphone and answer the question. Trust me, I hate standing still, let alone sitting still. So when I could, I used to roam. So I understand the tendency by a department head to perhaps roam on occasion, particularly when they're done. But I'm confident that the manager will coordinate his team in such a way that they'll be readily available to answer any questions at any time. All right, have a great meeting. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, item number 7 is a meeting with the representatives of UPS regarding a request for an easement on, in, and over town land, a portion of 20 Centec Boulevard. I'll invite the presenters to the table, please. And I would just ask that you introduce yourselves for us and for the record.
Did it come through? Thank you. Want to go first? Yeah. All right, to start, I'm Jonathan Scott with Prologis, representing UPS. I'll be the development director, and I'm here to speak with all of you as much as possible.
Yep, Ryan Kaminsky, also at Prologis and supporting John on this project.
Let's see if we can get this to pop up here. Just messaging Mark now. Are you seeing it? Let's try that. Oh, we're still on there. Okay, well, we can begin to speak about it just a little bit. So, just down Centec Boulevard, directly across from Fortune Boulevard, we're requesting an easement for a small sliver of land just north of the proposed job site. Oh, there it is. There we go. Okay. The main purpose of this easement request would be to, in good practice, generate a four-way intersection. The preliminary data that we have right now shows that with the staggered intersection, our numbers are good where it sits, but just in a way of partnering with the town and also just a long-term development, it'd be a good practice and better to create a four-way intersection just across from Fortune Boulevard. The project we're looking right now, we're in design and looking to submit. Looks like it's.
Yeah, your screen's inverted because of how Mark is projecting.
Okay. There we go.
There you go.
Perfect. Thank you. So the green area that you can see just below, this is the currently planned entrance to the job site right off of Centec Boulevard, and currently it's shown as staggered with Fortune. So the area above, the triangular area that you can see, the clouded area is the portion that we're requesting an access easement for the main truck traffic for the facility to enter and create a four-way intersection there.
Flip the other one. Shows the overall and how it. And you have the view with the.
There we go.
There we go.
So here's just another view of it, just so you can kind of see a little bit more. What we have here is just a sketch. It's not fully designed, but it would line up directly with Fortune Boulevard, creating that four-way there rather than the staggered.
So what you're saying is the pink, the reddish pink area, right? Otherwise, if you just had the green area, the intersection's kind of going to be offset.
Yes, ma'am. And while the numbers still work for us to have that staggered, just as good design practice and also just long-term solution for the town, we'd see it better to be directly across from Fortune Boulevard.
So there would be no driveway where the green is?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other questions?
Sure, I have a question. Would this be, do you intend for this to just be a stop sign at the end of the driveway? You know, future plans for this to be a lighted intersection? Is there any thought as far as that goes?
Preliminary data right now doesn't show the need for any additional signalization or anything of that nature. It would just be an open drive, just as it is at Fortune right now.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Yeah, I also wanted to make sure we
Okay,
talked
please.
about the, walk through the process, and then if I still have questions when you're done, I'll ask them.
So, board members, as you know, later in the agenda this evening, you have the annual town meeting warrant, and this request would need to be considered by town meeting, as it is considered a disposition of land under Mass General Law, Chapter 30B, Section 16. So town meeting would have to approve the disposition of this land, and then from their vote, we would seek a competitive process to dispose of the land as we're required to do. So this does take town meeting's approval, and UPS is here this evening to provide this level of information to you so you can have a better understanding and consider including it when you sign the warrant this evening. It will go through the rest of the traditional process for hearings with Finance Committee and then be presented to town meeting. We are in the process, since this is town-owned land, of having this area, which is depicted there, which is about 94,000 square feet, appraised to determine the value of what the easement would be. And then that would be, the value of the land that would come into play for the easement acquisition through the bidding process. So happy to answer any other procedural questions you may have about who needs to do what, but consideration for the board will come later in this evening as you sign the warrant.
Any other questions?
So I'm looking at the map of the land. Is it currently zoned for municipal use, public safety? Is that what?
So yeah, so it is town land. It's part of 20 Centec Boulevard, which is land that was acquired for the construction of Centec Fire Station. Recently in 2018, at the top of the screen that you see here, Selco constructed their peaker plant and enhanced their substation. And then roughly in the middle of the screen is being shown right now is the National Grid high tension power lines. And then that leaves this roughly 7-acre triangular shaped piece of land that is part of 20 Centec Boulevard. It is general municipal purposes, with the exception of the carve-outs for Selco just north of the power line. So this board, there's no other entity in town that needs to opine on whether this land should be disposed of other than the board.
Questions? Comments? Okay,
All right, well, thank you for your consideration and working with us through the laptop.
thanks very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That brings us to financial business, and item number 8 is a presentation on capital improvement planning.
We're just gonna have to switch technology back over.
Yep.
And go back into the Google Meet mode. All right, so just if you just want to go ahead one more slide, please. So this evening, we're here to provide an update on 2 components of the town's capital improvement planning that we've been working on. First and foremost is the fiscal year 2025 capital improvement plan, which is of course a warrant article that we are proposing for the May 20th town meeting, part of your packet this evening. And then we wanted to talk in a little bit more detail about that plan and some changes that we've made since we originally constructed the budget during January. And then I want to talk in some detail also about the long-range capital improvement plan that we've spent several months developing, and really, I guess, several years of looking at the needs across municipal facilities after the most recent capital improvement projects went underway when we started the police station. We'll certainly talk about the financial aspects of that and the general philosophy and approach that we consider when we're going through the long-range capital plan. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on that this evening, but just want to affirm that we're following the policy and principles that the boards have set forth. And then I want to talk about the project that has been most prioritized within our capital improvement assessment for both for the long-range plan or major capital improvements. So Justin, if you want to go ahead. So first, just to highlight where we started. So we presented fiscal projection 1 in February. We had $2.2 million worth of capital improvements. And as we have done in the past, we proposed to fund this capital improvement plan that we presented entirely through available reserves of the town or free cash. So there's a variety of investments that we've made, all of which were discussed in detail with the Finance Committee through the hearings that were mentioned earlier this evening. Since that time, We are seeing some opportunities to make adjustments to the plan and actually reduce the amount of funding of free cash that we would need to invest in capital improvement projects. So the first is eliminating the additional funds to go into the sidewalk and roadway improvement fund. This is a general fund that doesn't have specific project targeted. And we feel that through ARPA contributions that were previously made and other investments at prior town meetings using free cash, that we have sufficient funding in there to proceed with projects over the course of the next fiscal year. And again, trying to maintain reserve levels and cash flexibility moving forward, we propose to remove that from this year's plan. A minor adjustment within the fleet additions and shop equipment. Removing 2 items from the police department's planned investments, which is an evidence storage trailer and a comfort dog. We will be making these investments, but we have the capacity to do so out of the current year's operating budget. And since those funds are already appropriated and are available for our use, we're going to move forward with that. We've done deeper analysis on the budget and can certainly pull that off without any additional investments from the taxpayers. We are looking to replace the 2 motorcycles that the police department uses. Those are both $26,711 to acquire 2 new motorcycles. I don't have the exact age of the current bikes, but they're beyond the end of useful life and important for our operations and use, and especially during community events, parades, traffic enforcement, and other activities throughout the months that weather permits us to use them. And then making some adjustments within the total investment that we need within our IT infrastructure and networks, removing the infrastructure investment of $50,000 and reducing the hardware software requirements by 72. So those are specific changes that we feel important to remove from the plan or add to the plan at this time, and will include in fiscal projection 2. What we look forward to discussing in greater detail with the select board at your upcoming workshop and within the proposal that we'll make to you at the April meeting of the board is what source of funds that we use for the replacement of the Rescue 1 truck for the fire department. So that's a $1.3 million investment. And we feel that ARPA funds would be the best source of funding for that. It'll provide many downstream benefits by reducing the total amount of free cash that's needed for the capital improvement plan for this year. But we'll save the details of those until we have the opportunity to look at American Rescue Plan Act funding more comprehensively in the coming weeks. So just this evening, minor adjustments to the plan, which result in $205,000 reduction in total expenditures required. Again, this is a free cash funded initiative, so that would allow us to maintain higher reserve balances within those accounts. But I just wanted to pause there before I go into other aspects of our capital improvement planning and see if there's any questions.
Any questions? Looks like you're good to keep going.
Okay. So moving into the long-range capital improvement plan, and Justin, you can go ahead one more slide, please. So this is a specific initiative that ties to the 2030 strategic plan of the town within the strategic outcome area of exceptional. Certainly, 2 key areas that are identified within the outcome area is managing fiscal responsibility and performing effective long-range planning. More specifically, as the board set goals for the manager's office for fiscal year 24 that we're working through, within enhancing the long-term financial forecasting aspect of my goals. You identified 3 areas for us to focus on, which includes updating the 5-year financial forecast for operations. Measure 2, identifying major capital investments for the next 5 to 10 years and incorporating those impacts into a new layer of the financial forecast. And then providing alternative ways to communicate and enhance the understanding of taxpayers when it comes to all of our financial planning documents. So measure 2 is what we're really going to work through tonight, what we have come up with based upon needs for the next 1 to 10 years, to be honest, as far as major capital investment goes. And then I will, as I said before, spend a little bit of time talking about our philosophy for funding these and how we intend to maintain the clear priority being the operating expenditures, the operating budget, and preserving the override from calendar year 2021. So capital planning in our world is a long endeavor, and we often rely upon a variety of different unique funding sources, even when we're accessing the tax levy. That would be getting special borrowing authorization from town meeting, and when necessary, getting a debt exclusion, which means that not only town meeting approves the borrowing, but the taxpayers are approving a specific tax increase for a project. So that means our capital improvement planning takes a long time, and we do a lot of due diligence to ensure that we're only recommending the most cost-effective projects based upon the most intense needs of the community, because it's important that we get it right and that the taxpayers trust us that when we go to them that it's actually a need and not just a want. So we've spent a lot of time over the last few months really analyzing what the needs and wants are within our capital facilities within the community. So we're really at the beginning of looking at this new 10-year capital improvement plan. We're going to talk about early project conceptualization this evening for our highest ranked priority. But we really see, what would happen is if things continue to move forward would be bringing a project to fruition sometime within the next 3 to 5 years, depending on a number of factors, including how big and how complicated any project would be. The preliminary project process is really grounded in Massachusetts general laws, and we have to take a number of unique steps to actually formalize and bring a project to fruition. We often, I would say we always put a building committee in place, representatives of the taxpayers to ensure that we were being fiscally prudent in expending the dollars that are approved for projects, building the right scope to ensure it meets the designated timeline that's set forth in the committee's charge, and then managing the entire construction aspect of the project. We bring in outside partners under the Massachusetts general laws. We're required to have an owner's project manager for any project with a anticipated value of more than $1.5 million, so quite a low threshold. And the OPM is the first professional that comes on board and is strictly an advocate and someone who's technically proficient in construction activities to advise not only town staff but the building committee throughout the process. They work directly with the designer, who is also a contracted entity, and they help us build the budget for the project, which then we bring back to town meeting. So it's a taxpayer and resident-driven project from the outset. Once the select board, suggests it's a prudent time to move forward on any municipal project or school building project. So then we get into the more traditional aspects of a normal construction project life cycle of project design, project permitting, which we still go through even though we're not required to as a municipal entity, and then move into construction. So this is all to say that we took our planning work very serious, because we know when we're advocating here in front of the board to move a project forward that it's time and resource intensive for the community. And we've put that effort in to make sure we not only know the impact of selecting a particular project, but how it plays into other projects that may need to come to fruition within a similar time frame or once this one is completed. So I want to talk about some specific needs within the community that we've identified that have come to fruition. And I'm going to start on the right side of the screen this time with the Mountain View Cemetery. So this project is currently fully funded. It's a major capital investment. It's the first investment in a true expansion of the cemetery in quite some time. We are in the final design phase, and we'll have the project bid out during the summer months of this year. We intend, which I think is good news, we intend to come to town meeting. There's a warrant article that we're going to propose this evening that would make this project fully cash funded. It's currently split between borrowing and cash funded, and we have available funds on hand that makes financial sense. It's money that was turned back from the Beale Elementary School project last fall that will mean that we wouldn't have to borrow for this project. So that means there's no additional tax levy impact for this project. And then the largest project that is currently under design is a PFAS treatment plant for our drinking water system. We have an estimated cost of $18 million for this project, and we have been designated for state revolving fund dollars. We also will be seeking a borrowing authorization for this project at the annual town meeting. We have design funds that were put in place last year. The state revolving fund is a low interest loan option where we're guaranteed a 2% interest rate. So we're really fortunate to have been green lighted for that program to manage costs, especially with higher interest rates that we're seeing in the marketplace right now. And this is a major endeavor to ensure that we're compliant with the U.S. EPA regulations. The new project that I want to speak about this evening is DPW needs. So we've spent a lot of time looking at the needs at South Street. They are our oldest existing facilities of any municipal facilities that currently exist today. The water and sewer garage was built in the 1950s, and the highway/general DPW garage was built in the 1970s. They're showing their age. They have a lot of investment needs regardless of whether we move forward with a comprehensive project there or not. And we also have an opportunity to look at adding aspects to that site in those facilities that we currently don't have, which residents have been asking us to do, which includes a recycling center and a drop-off location for yard waste on a more permanent location or a more permanent basis. So I'm going to talk a little bit more about that, and Keith's going to help me here in a couple minutes on more details on that project. So within the midterm, the next 3 to 6 years, we see some what I'll call more minor renovation, system upgrades and improvements to the senior center located here on the Municipal Hall campus, or the Town Hall campus. Estimated cost $1.5 million. And then another major regulatory compliance issue that we're facing through one of our utilities, our stormwater utility, is stormwater compliance through our NIPDES permit. Estimated cost of this project is about $17 million. This project is unique because it's a multi-year investment that we need to make to ensure compliance. And this is new. It's new for everyone in the country on ways to remedy and meet compliance matters with regards to our stormwater permit. So that $17 million cost isn't something that we're going to need to have on hand on, one specific day, but it will be a multi-year investment that we'll make throughout the community to ensure compliance with phosphorus levels in our surface water bodies. So Justin, if you could just move forward. So I'll just pause there, and so it's not So it's an exhaustive list in that we've studied everything and wanted to identify specific projects that we both know are going to need investment and that we're proposing to talk a little bit more about this evening. This is really the totality of what we see the town's needs being that we've developed over the last 5 to 6 months. And I just want to pause there before I get into the financial aspects and see if there are any questions.
Any questions right now?
May I just ask a clarifying question? So there are 5 projects that you just reviewed.
Yep.
One, Mountain View Cemetery, fully funded, I understand that. So the water treatment plant and the stormwater compliance are both regulatory, like there's no choice for us to comply with either or to have to
That's correct.
invest
Yep.
those funds.
Yep, and I would say that between those two projects, the PFAS treatment plant, the $18 million is a rather firm number because we're largely through that design. And we've been, we've received communications from the state revolving fund that we would be awarded that amount of money. And then the stormwater compliance is a little less firm. As we start to gain compliance, future investments may not be necessary if we're more successful in our early endeavors and removing more phosphorus than we anticipate. So that's a little bit more of a worst case scenario.
May I follow up on that? So with the South Street, are you going to expand a little
I
bit
will.
more about the need for that? So I'll
Yes.
hold my
Yep.
questions. Thank you.
We'll get into that. Yep.
You look like you have a question.
Yeah, just a quick question on PFAS. So it still seems fluid though, right? I understand the concept, but as this evolves both federally and statewide, are we too early or do we expect it, how do we expect this to go? Because with PFOA and PFAS and all the derivatives that they have and subcategories of the sublimits, I think is where they're going. I guess the first question is the technology there. I understand design, but is the technology there in understanding that the parts per trillion, which we couldn't test for many years ago, now that we can, how does this play into this design? Is it technology there, we're good, this should be enough, or any concern that depending on federal and state final outcomes, final regulations, it could take a different turn?
From my understanding, well, we are designing to the EPA standards
Yep.
that are in place. So we're very confident that this is a sufficient endeavor to meet compliance with that. There's no new rounds of regulations that we're aware of at the state or federal level that would render this investment inadequate. If there's a different approach that's taken because of a different PFAS compound that wasn't included in this first round, or a different compound altogether, a new emerging contaminant, you know, we feel that there's some future proofing of the technology that we're using in removing PFAS, because it's not just PFAS specific.
Yeah.
But I can't guarantee that.
No, it's the best, we're no different of a situation than other cities and towns in the Commonwealth.
Yep.
The only risk at the state level is obviously the Fed set a level, states can always do better, they can't, so you have the threshold.
I think one of the interesting things with PFAS, though, is that the feds completely went to a much lower level than any state was regulating at, right? So Massachusetts was at like 20 parts per trillion for all six major compounds, and the feds went down to like 4 on a couple specific ones. So it's an interesting dynamic in that regulatory aspect, and I feel confident that it's a pretty high bar to meet.
Okay. And just one other comment, when we talk about our capital projects, that even with, when you're talking about the oldest buildings from the 50s and the 70s, that we have a history of the investments that we make through the planning process, as you're talking about in terms of a building committee on, it's not only an advocate for taxpayers in terms of process and transparency, but we have a history of coming on time, under budget, and that's the proof there as well, that time and again, for the police station, Beale, Sherwood, again and again, the long-term investments that we make because of this process is tried and true. So that's also a great result that we've had for years in our community, and buildings that are well-maintained and stick around for a long time. That's it for now. I'll have some financial questions, but thank you.
Sorry. Going back to the PFAS treatment plant, is that, I understand we're designing it to the regulations. Is the building and or system going to be designed in a way that, should those regulations change, it can be expanded with minimal impact, you know, is that?
Yeah, I mean, the type of treatment that we're proposing has a broader spectrum than PFAS. So, given everything that we know and the amount of water that we're currently permitted to be able to pump, this will be adequate. I'm not saying that we're overbuilding the project, but there would be room for modification.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
So Justin, you can just stay back on the financial aspects.
Okay.
So Justin gave away my secret. I don't have any other slide on this, so I just want to talk about, that's okay. I just want to talk about this for a couple minutes. So this board is well aware that I'm well aware that this board's strong priority is the operating aspects of our organization, and that you strongly prioritize the services that we provide on a day-to-day basis to residents over the capital needs. And you certainly recognize the capital needs, but as we've went through this capital planning endeavor, we have prioritized the operating budget, and we know that there's an upcoming need for an override, and we've greatly extended the duration of the commitment of this override, which was 4 years. And, you know, we'll definitely get 2 more years before we have to ask the override question, but it's coming, right? You know, from 2014 to 2021 was the last override, and we know that there's another one on the horizon, and we've purposely planned for that. That's the model that we operate through for our operating side of the house. So just know as an underline that we are doing nothing to jeopardize the value of the override, and we've thought about that from the taxpayer standpoint, and that we don't want to introduce projects in the years surrounding the override as to create a spike in the tax rate. So we've taken that advice, and we've built the project, and that has caused me to, as we talk about this prioritized project, to move it earlier, in our recommendations on when we want to get started. And so that's a key reason for that. But as we look at the overall debt service obligations of the community for our capital improvements, we are beyond the peak. So we're moving into time, because of the level principal approach on our 20-year terms of our bonds, that over the next foreseeable future, debt service obligations are only going to decline for this community. Since the last time we've borrowed for a full project, the overall tax base and the assessed value of the community has grown significantly. What that means for capital improvement planning is that we can take on substantial projects without significant impacts to the taxpayer, because those needs are spread out over a larger tax base. So that new growth that we experience not only benefits us in the current year, but it benefits us in future years by regulating, modulating the impact of future projects on tax bills. So as we look forward beyond fiscal year 25 into fiscal year 26 and 27, we are going to be reducing the debt service obligations on the average single-family home of about $75 a year. If you go out 3 years, it gets beyond $100. So in the previous years, as we went through the development of the Beale Elementary School and the police station, we've been increasing, right? And now we're going to reach a nice plateau for a couple of years, and see a decline once we get beyond fiscal year 25 into 26 and 27. So optimal time for us to do the planning and consider future projects that will have a much muted impact on the taxpayer. So that was really important to us. And everything that we're going to do for these projects, including the PFAS plant, is explore outside opportunities for funding. So we have the Inflation Reduction Act. We have, other opportunities to use non-taxpayer sources of funding, and we're going to pursue those at every opportunity that we can. There's no single project that I think is, quote, eligible for IRA funds and will be able to be paid for, but whatever part and piece that we can receive from an outside entity, we'll pursue that. So we're prioritizing not only the operating budget and mitigating taxpayer impacts, but we're trying to reduce those impacts every step of the way. So with that being said, I want to talk a little bit about our proposed project for the near term. Justin, if you can go ahead. So our number one prioritized project is DPW space optimization. So the Department of Public Works, relatively new within the town, of course, because we used to operate through a number of different departments, and now we've consolidated those into a single entity. What we have done over the last few months is really take a look at the structures, the systems, components of DPW's operations, and found a lot of needs that are impacting day-to-day operations of their work. So DPW is currently spread out through a field garages at 207 and 211 South Street, and then administrative space is contained within the town hall. So what I'd like Keith Baldinger to walk through this evening is how 207 and 211 South Street play out, what those existing conditions are, and then I'll talk about how we'll approach a project and further refine what those needs may be in the future.
So this slide shows the location for the residents home that don't know where it is. It's 207 and 211 South Street is right a few hundred feet down the street from Price Chopper. You can move forward, Justin, if you like. So next slide. So this first slide, we'll talk about each building that's there. So there's 211 South Street, which is the large DPW garage. This building's a little over 30,000 square feet, actually almost 31,000 square feet. It was built in 1976. It houses the Highway Division, Parks and Cemetery, Fleet Management, and has a storage section for Public Buildings Division. The building was, for 1976, was actually, there was a lot of forward thinking when this building was designed, so it's actually still in fairly good condition, but it does have some major repair needs. You can see them on the left. So these items include, needs a roof replacement and some masonry repair on the outside of the building, insulation upgrade. It has very old and inefficient HVAC system in it. And the restrooms, showers, locker rooms, they are circa 1976. And they do need some ADA upgrades and some gender equity improvements for them. The building also needs electrical and plumbing updates and fire alarm and fire suppression upgrades. These are items that we have to do, probably in the next 3 to 5 years anyways, and they're probably in the value of around $2 million to do that work. On the other side, other column, you'll see some needs that would improve this space. And, like I mentioned, employee rest facilities. So there's no rest facilities in the building for our long-term duration weather events. And, some break room upgrades. And again, I mentioned the bathrooms, showers, that sort of thing. And we'll go through some photos that will outline some of those items. The fleet management area could be larger. Ultimately, we'll be servicing fire equipment down there, so putting those larger trucks in that building. And then it's, as you'll see in some of the photos, it's full, so we need expanded storage areas. And then another item would be a vehicle wash bay that would support all town vehicles, trucks, fire trucks, whatever, and then we would have a system for recycling the water, so it doesn't just go in the drain. Next slide. So we have a few photos here of the space. So these first 2 or 3 are just exterior photos of the large building.
Sorry.
Then we get inside. On the left there, you'll see the fleet management section. On the right, you see the parks and cemetery storage side of the building. That's a midday photo, so there are a bunch of trucks missing. Next slide. So this is hazardous oil and lubricant storage area in the building. Over time, new vehicles have all kinds of different lubricants, so we're running out of space for that. Next slide. So in here, you'll see the Parks and Cemetery Operations Garage. Again, midday, so everybody's out. And then you have a locker room on the right, which doesn't have enough locker rooms for the staff we have.
Keith, can I pause you right there?
Sure.
So I also just wanted to point out to the board, on the left-hand side of the screen, you'll see, so we have, within this building, we have highway, fleet management, parks and cemetery divisions. And certainly, we all function as one department, but of course, when you're out working in the field with different folks and, you have those kind of internal division bonds, you can see the kind of muster and break area internal to the building for parks maintenance employees is there on the left-hand side of the screen, just within the garage bay.
Right. Because they're the break room that's in the building is insufficient to hold all staff.
So those tables there.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
May I ask a question? In this picture, are those heaters on the,
On the wall.
hanging from the ceiling
Yep,
that are red?
They're gas-fired heaters.
Gas-fired heaters?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep, very inefficient
Yeah,
product.
yep, thank you.
Okay, next slide, Justin. So here this is the main highway garage for the storage of all their trucks. Next slide. So here are the restrooms from 1976. The only upgrades have been those stainless steel dividers sometime in the past 25 years. And then, let's see, next slide. So on the left, you'll see the waste oil heater that heats the fleet management area. And then on the right, that big tube on the ceiling, that's the fresh air for the building that comes in. So next we go to 207 South Street. This is the water and sewer garage. Like Kevin mentioned, it was built in the 1950s. It was originally the highway garage and converted to the water and sewer garage in the late 70s when the new building was built. It's approximately 11,000 square feet. Major repairs needed on this building, roof and roof structure and insulation, and you'll see in the photos some water damage from over the years. The masonry on the building is failing. It's not large enough for the division. Only about 50% of the vehicles that the division owns can fit inside, and some of them can't fit inside because they're too large. It has 1 bathroom and 1 shower, and then the HVAC system is just gas-fired heat in the ceiling. The building is in pretty poor shape. It's not really conducive to expansion or renovation. It would require almost a complete demolition of the building to rebuild it to meet existing building code. And this operation needs about 16 to 20,000 square feet of space to operate, to keep their equipment and inventory in one place. And of course, it would also need restroom and shower upgrades, gender equity, ADA compliance, needs inventory storage. To build this building by itself is probably about $8 or $10 million for a 16 to 20,000 square foot building. If we put an addition onto the larger DPW garage, we could be an economy of scale, and there would be a lot more shared spaces, and it would be a true DPW where all divisions are in the same location. So there would be, one set of locker room, 1 set of rest facilities, 1 set of bathrooms, and then offices for operations staff.
Keith, can you just clarify, based on these major repair needs, what the cost would be if we were to have to make these repairs?
So this building, to make these repairs, was, I would say, probably around $2.5 to $3 million, and it would be almost a complete rebuild of the building.
Yeah, I just want apologize for the dumb question, but you've referenced gender equity a few times. Can you just clarify what that means? Do you mean that, like, there's just one bathroom, there's not a men's room?
So in this building, there's one bathroom.
Okay.
And one locker room. The Highway Division garage has one large men's area with a shower and has a small woman's area with no shower. Actually, Public Buildings is working with Highway Division now to add a shower into a space that they're modifying. So it's super limited.
Yeah.
May I ask you a question? I think I might know the answer to this, but can you explain why showers are needed for these departments?
Sure. So in water and sewer, that might explain itself.
Yeah.
They are, when there's a water break or sewer break, they gets pretty messy. And then Highway Division is the same. We have long duration storms where staff are not home for a day or two. So it's amazing how much a shower will help you get through that stuff. So they are utilized now, I will tell you that. They just need to, it would be nice if they were better.
I'm sure the roommates of people that work in the sewer department would appreciate the availability of a shower.
Even on the highway side, our highway staff does most of our stormwater work, so
Sure.
They're cleaning catch basins with, cranes and claws, and so they're pulling literally material that's considered hazardous once it comes out of there, because it's collecting all runoff from streets, and they're putting it in the truck, so they're standing beside the truck all day, and they're exposed to those chemicals and other materials that are within that system, and just a variety of other kind of day-to-day hazards that we'd prefer that our employees don't have to take home with them.
Thank you.
How many employees are collectively in these two buildings?
So, the large building, highway, so 11, 16, I think there's around 20 in DPW between highway and parks and fleet management, maybe 21. And then I believe the water and sewer division has 12 full-time staff.
Yep, so about 35 on site at these two facilities.
And then that, of course, would grow when it was a storm situation and we had like per diem
Yes.
plow drivers coming in who might also want to use the facilities.
Yep, and they do.
Warm up, get a cup of coffee, try to stay awake.
Yep, all that stuff, Yep, for sure.
And there are female DPW
Correct.
employees.
We do have a female highway division employee.
Okay, thank you. Okay.
Okay. So these are just some exterior photos of the water and sewer garage. Most of you may know this because it's a polling site. But you can certainly notice some of the masonry issues. If you want to go ahead and forward, Justin. So just another view. On the right, you'll see some exposed ceiling insulation. We have a couple more nice ones of those showing some water damage in the ceiling. If you want to go forward, Justin. This is one of our inventory rooms, which is packed full. Keep going, Justin. It's another area. And this is the last one. This one's kind of telling. You can see the two pieces of equipment in these photos. They're barely fitting inside the building because of the building height. So that's another issue that we have. So, next slide. And so then this last slide talks about DPW administration. So currently that's located here at Town Hall on the second floor. There's about 3,800 square feet with 28 staff. Space needs for DPW for the near future is probably about 5,000 square feet. We have almost no they have almost no storage upstairs. We are expecting that department to grow to 30 to 32 staff in the next few years. And certainly more storage space. And there's a potential that this site at South Street could allow to have a standalone DPW administration building that would have a resident-facing side and an office side, and then coincide with, as Kevin mentioned, a recycling facility that would be open on a regular basis for residents, and permanent yard waste collection facility.
So just to jump in on that, so as we looked at South Street, and we of course understand, and we've talked a lot about the space constraints that we have here at this building. The entire second floor of the town hall, which is just the front part of the building, folks who visited there know is the DPW administration space. So we have a split department right now, where field staff report to 211 South Street, administration, which ranges from customer service to executive level DPW director, all reside within this building. So one of the things that we want to look at through this initiative is what makes the most sense operationally in the context of the without ignoring the space needs at the town hall. Is there an opportunity for us to look at this project and provide a relief valve to the town hall and give us some additional space? Is the opposite of that true? Do we need to have maintain the space at the town hall? What opportunities exist for combining, the highway and sewer garage with the highway and water and sewer garage together, and what economies do we get from that? So we think there's a lot of ways to not only improve our day-to-day operations to make this really an efficient and cost-effective project. And this project is not solely a taxpayer-funded project. This would allow us to use rates from the utilities that are raised through user fees to cover the cost of it. That extends into the administrative components of that because they directly support DPW operations. We're not exactly sure how that plays out. We think it's an interesting thing to explore with the building committee, whether or not the needs of the Department of Public Works, because they currently house in our oldest facilities for their fleet operations, can we think about the administrative staff as well and find the best solution, not only for DPW, but for all municipal operations. So we see the most dire need, of course, being those existing facilities on South Street with some significant needs to address it. I go back to my first meeting with former Water and Sewer Superintendent Bob Tzeski whenever I sat down with my one-on-one meeting with him in 2017 to get to know him. He wrote out plans to replace the highway, or to replace the water and sewer garage at 211 South Street. And I said, roll that back up, Bob. If we ever consider this project, we should look at it from a bigger scope. I didn't think it would take us 7 years to get here, but I'm glad that we waited and have the opportunity to look at it more comprehensively than we did then.
Quick question. I just want to make sure, maybe if I were just to bring this up to the 10,000 foot level, confirm my understanding, 207 South Street is at end of life, essentially.
Yes.
And 211 South Street does not have the capacity to absorb what we have
Correct.
at 211,
Mm-hmm.
at 207. So I just want to, you said 207 repairs 2.5 to 3 million, but really you see it as a complete overhaul or rebuild. I just want to, it doesn't seem reasonable to think that we could rebuild what's there for that amount. So I just wanted to confirm that your 2.5 to 3 million was
you're
not.
correct. Like, rebuilding that building would be much more than just
Right.
Band-Aiding it.
Okay. I think it would be helpful to sort of understand the context. I mean, this is something that historical Shrewsbury, it's end of life, and the value proposition to the town is that it will cost us more to repair than it is to potentially look at some of this, rebuilding, expansion, et cetera. So I'm trying to put it in that context, just to make sure that I have a clear understanding.
I think when I look at some of the pictures, right, do I think it's a better use of taxpayer dollars to try to repair a building that is at end of life, or do I think it's a better use of taxpayer dollars to spend more to build something that would suit the needs of the community for an additional 50 to 70 years, right? And I think that's kind of the point you're trying to make. I mean, I see those pictures of the South Street, the water and sewer. I don't know how you can justify repairing that building. It doesn't seem possible. You know, obviously, we'd want to explore it further to make sure, and I know that's something that a building committee would make sure that we weren't overlooking a possible use of a current building, right? Which I know that we do every time we move from one building to a newer building. I know we did that with the police station. You know, is there some way to repurpose this building? What would be the cost of that? Is it a good use of taxpayer dollars? Does it make more sense to just tear down and build new? You know, we're talking about energy efficiencies, but also, you know, coming up to modern day code and requirements for staff. So I have other comments, but I want to open it up to the rest of the board.
Sure. I mean, just a thought, way back in the initial slide with the short-term projects and midterm projects, what would be helpful, and you alluded to this, would be as we roll off the debt of the average taxpayer, what these projects could potentially mean for the average taxpayer as we go through this process. Just to show what that would impact as we look through this, and you have a schedule of next 20 years. So an idea as to what this would mean, I think that would be helpful. For example, stormwater, we talk about, well, that's through the stormwater fee. And together with any improvements or capital project here through some of the enterprise funds or through the fees. So that'd be helpful. I think what would be unique about a building committee here could also look at potential synergies of a shared location, right? Where being in a couple different locations or three doesn't lend itself to the most operational efficiency. Not, our workforce does a great job. I mean, they do, but if we can be in one site, as we move the repairs all down there as well, there are opportunities where constant collaboration, staff can do other things as well, not travel in between sites. It'll be interesting to see how it comes out. But the vetting process that we do through the building committee, and it's always on camera, it's recorded, people can watch it, but it'll be a helpful thought process to go through, you know, putting $2 million in a building that's shot, that you're gonna have to spend $2 million more, or looking at the long-term vision for this and what it means for the community, so it's not, you know, 40 years from now when we're talking about this again. So I think building committee makes sense to see where they come out. This is a thought. It's a need, but the shape of it may take some twists and turns depending on looking at a couple locations, the age of the buildings, and what the desired outcome is. And right now, we get it, larger facility or consolidating for operational efficiencies, but what it means. So I think a building committee makes sense with folks from the public, and vet it through together with some staff members and move forward with it.
Maybe just clarify building committee, so it's not just, to your point, the building committee will also look at those operational efficiencies, the value or benefits, if there are any, to residents in terms of the services that they're getting, et cetera. So I think maybe sometimes when people hear building committee, they're thinking just the actual building, but really looking at the operations as well.
I think this building committee would be looking at proposing the best path forward for this.
It's unique. It's a
potential
little different
project.
than
It is.
paradigm
It's different,
of-
right? When it was like, okay, police station building committee, we're building a police station. This is more like, we'd like to get some eyes on this to make sure we're choosing the best path forward.
Yep. And give it the attention it deserves, right? Over a multiple month process.
Right.
Years, actually, potentially, so.
So here's the thing that I was thinking about this. Do you have more to say? You want to do more?
Just
One
wanted
more
to-
slide? That's fine.
So I just wanted to talk about, I said at the beginning, we want to prioritize mitigating taxpayer impacts. We're going to do that through this project, not only through efficiencies that we hope to gain by looking at both sites here at Maple Avenue and on South Street, and the utilization of rates and not just taxpayer dollars, but we'd like to we will be requesting the board consider funding some initial design work and conceptual work through the building committee using ARPA funds. So again, using other dollars other than taxpayer dollars to get this rolling forward, but also doing this sooner rather than later, because we've now defined that we see the need for, you know, an override question for fiscal year 27, and getting this project up and running sooner rather than later will have a benefit and not spike the tax bill in a future year. So this project, I don't think, this project is nothing like building a police station. The cost is a quarter of that, maybe, and then it's even further mitigated. I'll say half of that, maybe, with the biggest scope that we could pursue. It's further reduced by, you know, using utility rates. So, I mean, to kind of John's question or comment before, I mean, I can't really see you know, a taxpayer impact of, you know, $80 a year, you know, $20 a quarter, and I don't even think it's going to be there. I'm going to give myself, acknowledge there's a lot of room in that number. I don't think we'd even get there. So, I think this is a great opportunity to, you know, move forward with a project that's much needed, and like I said, was first introduced to me in day one on the job in 2017. So that's it. So look forward to hearing any feedback from the board. Like I said, we're going to have our ARPA workshop coming up at the first Tuesday in May, and then our full presentation on ARPA at your regular meeting on April, and then the first full meeting in April, on April 9th, we'll come back to the board and have further conversation on this.
Questions? I have a question. Well, Kevin, I know that this is something that is part of your goals, and we've talked about the fact that getting sort of these longer term planning initiatives, you know, thought out, but also how we can make them available to the public, sort of a preview of where we think the needs are. To your point, this is something that you've been aware of and been talking about for a number of years, but do you foresee the ability for us to make this available or incorporate it more into our ongoing conversations, even if it is just to, you know, like we've been trying to socialize the override, that socializing that in, you know, 6 years we're going to have to address, whether it's stormwater and others.
Yeah, I mean, I think we want to do a better job at illustrating the capital improvement needs. It's one of those things, if you look back over the last 20 or 30 years, there's a capital improvement project always somewhere in the pipeline. I don't think we forecast that out really well, and I think folks said, well, where did this project come from? And our goal is to eliminate that mystery, you know, so we worked really hard to build a multi-year plan this year. We, of course, acknowledge that there's, you know, capital needs on the school side, which we didn't address, and some of those are needs within the realm of roof replacement, window replacement, that's going on at Oak, and HVAC system, and those things that we need to address as well. We're cognizant of those, but we really wanted to focus on the municipal conversation tonight and highlight our needs and think about a future project.
Well, I think this also is the right time to do that. We've had several workshops now where we've been talking about capital needs. We did a great whiteboarding exercise, took what was in Mr. Samia's head and got it on actual whiteboard, and it's sort of a timeline, a visual timeline of basically everything. You know, we even had it all the way going out to like having to do work on the police station, and then we all decided that we would not be in these seats at that time, and so we would walk it back and look like 10 years, not, you know, 40 years down the line. But I think it really is important to be doing this type of work. And, you know, one thing that I think about when I think about the South Street DPW garage, water and sewer, right, these are things that are out of the public view. It's not like the library where someone's going to say, okay, I'm going to make this investment, I'm going to raise my taxes by, say, $80 a year, but I'm going to get to go to the library and I'm going to get to, you know, take out books and participate in programs. And every time I walk in there, I see where my tax dollars are going. With something like this, unless you're going in to vote or using the cardboard dumpster, you're not really spending a lot of time at this part of our town. But yet, the DPW affects every aspect of residents' experience, whether it's improvements in our parks, maintaining our recreational spaces, plowing our streets, maintaining our roads, managing the water system, every time a water main breaks, every time, you need a pothole filled, and then possibly adding a recycling center and a yard waste drop-off. These are the kinds of things that we heard from residents loud and clear when we talked through, the strategic plan. And if we want to be true to that strategic plan, these are the sort of priorities that, we've heard from people. This is what's important to them. DPW is what makes your town operate. And so making sure that the space in which the DPW is existing in allows for that to be, to meet the needs of the residents in a way that they expect, I think is very important. So even though this may not be something that people will be able to walk into and appreciate on a day-to-day basis, I hope they would see the value in investing in the DPW if that is the direction that we decide to go in. Any other comments?
I, as a voter in precinct 10, that building is quite distressing when you really look at the condition of the building. And, I think you mentioned, all of the ways that, this department impacts our everyday life in our community. And, I think one of the ones you didn't mention was sewer, and we don't ever want to have to worry about what happens after we flush the toilet. And this is the department that makes sure that we don't ever, we have to worry about it in our role here, but residents, that's the last time you ever think about that. And, this is really important work that truly impacts our quality of life in town. So, there's, in a town like Shrewsbury, to have our buildings in a condition like this, it's pretty tough sell, and you can see there's equipment and materials that are being damaged by, leaky roofs and, if having our fleet, these vehicles are incredibly expensive, and not being able to garage some of these vehicles in our fleet it decreases the lifespan of these vehicles. So this is important work, and it's not fun and exciting, but it's really important work. And I think, this exercise that we're doing here, I think is something really important for our residents to see, what it's like when you own a home, there's always a project, and as soon as you finish one project, there's another one right behind it. And, to see that, we are paying attention, we are planning these things out and trying to map this out in a way that we can maintain our buildings and have in a way that has the least possible impact on our taxpayers. So thank you for all the work that went into this. That whiteboarding exercise was really valuable. So thank you.
I'll just say thank you, Keith and Kevin, for this. I think having a conceptual timeline out there in the public, whether it's on the website or even just here, publishing this presentation is good for the public to see that these are things that we've been thinking about for some time, and they don't just come out of nowhere. I just have a quick ask on the slide with the immediate needs of the town and the midterm needs. Underneath, like the estimated cost, there are different colored circles in there, and I believe each one means something unique. I think just before this gets published, if we could just have a key of what each of those means, I think that would help the public, I think, visualize and understand more what these needs are.
Yep.
And then I did just have a quick question. The ADA compliance, is that throughout the entire building, or is that just within
The entire building, actually.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's important to highlight, especially since these are polling locations that people are going into. We should make sure that we are ADA compliant. So, again, thank you for this work.
Okay, thanks.
All right.
Good.
Thank you.
Thanks, Keith. Okay, that brings us to an update on the FY 2025 budget.
As Select Board Member Flynn noted at the outset of the meeting, we held budget hearings through the Finance Committee last Thursday and all day Saturday, where we had the opportunity to review operations and financial aspects and the ask for fiscal year 25. good session. Appreciate the opportunity to be before the Finance Committee. And we are working to continual evolution of the fiscal year 25 budget, which, you know, will shape up through fiscal projection 2 in the coming weeks. We actually have some ideas as things have matured over the last really 6 weeks since we presented the budget. We think we have some opportunities to reallocate some funds, including finally dedicating part of the operating budget for economic development. So I look forward to kind of working through that and developing fiscal projection 2 for the end of April.
Great. Thank you. Any questions on the FY25 budget? We probably all got them asked and answered at Finance Committee, and we spent a good amount of time with this budget just recently. All right, let's go on to new business. Item number 10 is to review and act on the one-day all alcohol license application of Denise Higgins, St. John's High School, for an annual gala event on May 4th, 2024, from 5 p.m. to 11 p.m. This is an annual event, and so we did not require Denise Higgins to be present this evening. We do this every year.
Move approval.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Item number 11 is to review and act on the donation bin permit application from Bay State Book Company for one donation bin located at 152 Main Street pursuant to Article 25 of the general bylaws. This is the other donation bin at the ISW.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Item number 12 is to review and act to sign the warrant for the May 20th, 2024 annual town meeting. I'll turn it over to you to take us through the warrant.
Great, and I'm going to have Planning and Economic Development Director Chris McGoldrick come up and give the board an update on the zoning articles when we get to them later in the agenda. Chris, you you could come up, you can come to the table now if you want, or just, there's a couple articles that Chris hasn't updated the board yet, so as we roll through the warrant, Justin, if you wouldn't mind putting the warrant up on the screen for everyone at home, I would greatly appreciate it. I'm going to roll through the 54 articles on the town meeting warrant. We won't spend a lot of time on any one of them in particular unless you have questions, which we're happy to answer. So this is again for May 20th, 2024. Article 1 is here reports of town officers and committees if one was not provided for the annual town report. Article 2 is to raise a sum of money to fund and begin planning work for the 300th anniversary celebration, which would be managed by the 300th anniversary celebration committee. Article 3 is a standing warrant article to choose the trustees of the Wright and Harlow Trust Fund. Article 4 is to make adjustments for any prior year bills for fiscal years prior to 2024. Article 5 would be to make adjustments within the fiscal year 24 budget. At this time, we don't anticipate any. Article 6 would be to place funds within the Special Purpose Override Stabilization Fund, which is dedicated to preserving and balancing town finances on the operations side, preserving the length of the override. So this will be the 5th consecutive year that we make a deposit into that account. Article 7 would be to consider the operating budget for fiscal year 25 with all departments, including the school. Article 8 would be to receive money from the Selco Cable TV division to offset the tax rate. Article 9 is funding from the Municipal Light Department to offset the tax rate. Article 10 is the use of free cash to offset the tax rate. Article 11 would be to fund the solid waste enterprise operations, solid waste and recycling. Article 6 would be to fund the operating budget of the sewer system. Article 13 would be to fund the operating budget of the water system. Article 14 would be to fund the budget of the stormwater system. Article 15 would be to receive funds for cable television, public educational and governmental access, which is used to fund the broadcast of meetings like this through SMC. Article 16 is to transfer funds to pay for medical expenses of disabled fighters and police officers. Article 17 is to transfer funds into the town's insurance trust fund. Article 18 is to transfer funds into the general stabilization fund. Article 19 is to transfer funds into the sewer stabilization fund. Article 22 is to set the annual spending limits for the town revolving accounts, and Article 22, the general bylaws. Article 21 is to receive funds from the Commonwealth through Chapter 90 to fund roadway improvements.
Quick question, sorry to interrupt.
That's
On
fine.
Article 21, when the state funds additional monies for the roads under the millionaire's tax, is that also under this article?
It is.
Okay.
They fund it through the Chapter 90 mechanism, which allows us to receive it by accepting this vote.
So that covered last year when we received it after town meeting, it covered, it's, okay.
Yep, that's why we don't designate a specific amount to be received.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. Article 22 is to transfer funding from the sale of cemetery lots to the cemetery division for operations. Article 23 is to appropriate funds for water quality improvements within lakes, ponds, and waterways within the town. Article 24 is to appropriate funds for Shrewsbury Youth and Family Services. Article 25 is to appropriate funds for the general capital improvement budget, which we discussed earlier. Article 26 is to fund the sewer capital improvement plan. Article 27 is to fund the water capital improvement plan, which includes a borrowing authorization request for us to access state revolving fund monies for the construction of PFAS treatment plant. Article 28, oh, I'm sorry, that's Article 28. Article 27 is the stormwater capital improvement plan. Article 28 is the water capital improvement plan. Article 29 is to authorize the chief procurement officer, which is the town manager, to contract for a long-term storage, a long-term maintenance agreement for our water storage tank on Oak Street. Article 30 is to fund the balance of the capital improvement costs for the cemetery project with funds that are available on hand to eliminate the need for the borrowing, which I previously addressed. Article 31 is to transfer funds that we've previously received from the class action opioid settlements into the special revenue fund. So these funds currently sit in free cash, and we'll transfer them into the special purpose fund that was established by the state for use for substance abuse prevention activities within the community. Article 32 is a citizen's petition request to amend the zoning bylaws, changing limited industrial zoning district to commercial zoning district in the area of Clinton and Holden Streets within the community. Article 33 is Community Preservation Act article where we're anticipating the new revenues to be raised within fiscal year 25 and making the obligatory transfers into various subcategories and accounts as required by the general laws. Article 34 is a Community Preservation Act project to fund $7,000 for a feasibility study for affordable public housing at 11 Elizabeth Street.
Mr. Manager, wasn't this just approved by the Affordable Housing Trust?
It was, and given the uncertainty and timing, that's likely an article that we'll pass over at town meeting.
Okay.
Article 35 is to use Community Preservation Act funds for additional work on the permanent story walk at Lake Street Park. Article 36 is $205,000 from CPC funds to perform work on historic gravestones, Phase 2 within the Mountain View Cemetery. Article 37 is to use $100,000 of CPC funds for continual work on the Camp Wanigan parking lot and trails. Article 38 is $4,157 of CPC funds. I'm sorry, this is for the Camp Wanigan Trail. The prior was for the parking lot. Article 39 is $5,000 of CPC funds for renovations at the historic schoolhouse. Number 5, Article 40 is for the easement that has been previously discussed at this board meeting through agenda item number 7, for the parcel of land at 20 Centec Boulevard that's town-owned. Article 41 is to lay out and accept a portion of Puritan Street, changes to the public way associated with the discontinuance of Puritan Street when Route 20 enhancements were made in the last few years and Puritan was turned into a cul-de-sac. Article 42 would be turning it over to Mr. McGoldrick.
Thank you. So Article 42 is for our digital signage bylaw. So this is expanding. Currently we have digital signage allowed in the town center district only. This would expand it town-wide. We have stricter provisions in the town center by nature of it being the town center, but this would allow that. And it does put design guidelines that allows digital signage to be put in front of businesses. This is a frequent request that we do have for businesses to allow a digital component to their sign, so this allows that. Article 43, so this is to amend the indoor-outdoor farmers market definition with regard to the allowable ratio of vendors versus craft versus produce. Vendors, currently we have a very strict requirement. This will make it a simple majority of vendors to be produce over craft. Article 44 is to amend, it's a lot of language there, but this is the MBTA zoning. I know that we've rebranded it as the TOD overlay district. I think this has gotten a lot of airtime with the board, so I won't belabor that. Article 45, so this is for the senior housing overlay district. So this is tied with some updates to, potential updates to our subdivision rules and regulations, which will allow for senior housing overlay to be more of a town-wide rather than site-specific. It does require a 5-acre minimum, but it allows senior housing developments to be proposed in the community more flexibly. Article 46 is to add a definition for brew pub. So this is similar to a tap room in terms of being attached typically with a restaurant use, but it requires 75% of the annual production to be consumed on site. So it's primarily a craft brew area and not a lot of off-site shipping of the product that's being brewed on site. Article 47, and I'll kind of touch on a couple of these, but the next couple articles are looking at adding that brew pub definition as well as our existing definitions for nano brewery and microbrewery in the overlay zones. So the town has passed that nano brewery and microbrewery regulations in the past. We're proposing no change to that language. It was passed conservatively in terms of areas where those types of uses can be considered. This now expands that to be an option to be reviewed either by site plan or special permit in our overlay zones, which are primarily commercial, and those overlay zones are really tied towards commercial revitalization of the areas. So we find this use to be conducive to those areas. For the Lakeway and Route 20 overlays, we're proposing the nano brewery sites to be special permit, or in the Edgemere, we're actually not allowing microbrewery because there's not a lot of sites that would be conducive to that scale of operation. And so the Edgemere is slightly more restrictive due to site constraints in those areas. So that's Articles through 49.
But Chris, this is because we're seeing interest in certain areas, right, for
Correct.
these
So
types of nano breweries or microbreweries. And did I hear I think you were presenting to the planning board and saying that we've kind of lost some opportunities because these nano breweries or microbreweries are going to other communities where it's allowed by right in certain places?
Well, so I'm not sure if we've lost the opportunities. I'm not. So we were approached by a brewery that has locations in a number of other states, and they were looking for kind of site selection in the community. The sites that they were reviewing, we weren't, the zoning did not support in those areas. And so, the conversation had to be that, we would have to wait until May in terms of providing any zoning support in those locations. I don't know if the brewery, if that particular business will stick around until May. We're hopeful. But in either case, I think, we've seen that it's been a conservative approach so far, and expanding the locations in which we can consider this use will be conducive, because we have seen that interest, so.
Thank you.
May I ask a quick question?
Yep.
In regard to the microbreweries and nano breweries and brew pubs, is that already included in the town center overlay?
So the town center allows nano breweries, I believe it's nano breweries and microbreweries by special permit. A brew pub would be the new use that we would be adding into that.
Okay,
So, yeah.
thank you.
Article 50 is the Flexible Development Overlay District. We're expanding that to be overlaid with the office research zoning. That's the underlying. So this is Flexible Development Overlay is in terms of, it has two sub-districts, Sub-District A and Sub-District B. Sub-District A is primarily our biotech and related uses, where Sub-District A is Sub-District A is the biotech uses, which we're proposing to overlay. Sub-District B would be more towards warehousing, and we are not proposing to expand that district beyond what is existing. So this is just expanding that biotech Sub-District A over the office research area, abutting the existing Flexible Development Overlay District. Article 51 is proposing to amend the reference to the date that zoning was adopted in Shrewsbury. After review of some documentation, there is some lot and bulk requirements in the May 18th, 1955 zoning bylaw that would affect the reference in terms of when we're looking at when a lot was legally created and the zoning protections related to that. So this simply references the appropriate date after that review.
That's it.
That's it.
Thanks.
So just a couple more articles. Article 52 is a proposed general bylaw, creating a new bylaw to require the construction of utilities, of overhead wires to be placed underground for both environmental resiliency and aesthetic purposes throughout the community. So any new construction of utility wires that would have formerly been overhead will have to be placed underground if that bylaw passes. Article 53 is a proposal through the retirement board to increase the maximum base retirement allowance through the town's pension system, on which a cost of living adjustment is calculated. Currently, only the first $14,000 of a Shrewsbury pensioner's retirement allowance receives a cost of living adjustment, and I believe that they are going to propose through a vote later this week to increase it from $14,000 to $16,000. The state maximum is $18,000. Article 54 is to amend the general bylaws to adjust some of the provisions regarding donation collection bins throughout the community to provide some relief where the current language actually prohibits donation bins in areas that were otherwise allowed because of overly restrictive setback requirements. And those are the 54 articles that are under consideration for the May 20th, 2024 meeting.
And that donation bin adjustment, that's having lived with it now for what, 3 years, and we're noticing that
At least, yeah.
there's some ways in which it's not quite working because of the setback requirements.
Correct. So it requires the donation bins to be located in an area that complies with all setback requirements. Looking back, I think at the intent, we wanted it to comply with the front yard setback requirements, so you don't have a donation bin right on, a sidewalk. So theoretically, if it were to comply with a rear setback requirement, you would think a logical place for aesthetic purposes might be to tuck it towards the back of a lot. The current requirements would prohibit that. So
Right.
I think it achieves our original intent while making it a little bit more of a streamlined process.
Right, I think
for
the
us.
original intent was to have them tucked away, but also to have some sort of process by which we would know where they are so that we could manage the overflow when there's dumping or whatever else.
Correct.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? You ladies good? Do you have a question? No, okay.
I think I do have a question.
Okay.
Was the easement request for UPS site, was this listed on here?
Yes, it was. It was 40, I believe.
40, okay. Thank you. I just wanted to make sure we had covered that.
Yep, it's Article
Yes, thank you.
40.
You're right. Okay. Thanks.
All right. Okay. There's no.
Last call to
That's it.
add more.
More than 50, whatever. Okay, I'll take a motion to sign the warrant.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Item number 13 is to review and act to submit the proposed zoning bylaw amendments on the May 20th, 2024 annual town meeting warrant to the planning board. Mr. McGoldrick, were you going to kind of, or you, someone, one of you?
I'll do that.
Okay.
Yep. So, as part of the requirements through the general laws, anything that's proposed for amendment through the zoning bylaws needs to be referred from the select board to the planning board for public hearing purposes. So through this item, we are asking the board to send Articles 32 and 42 through 51 to the planning board for public hearing and recommendation at the annual town meeting.
Okay, and there's a recommended motion in the summary sheet.
Sure, motion for the board to refer the identified zoning articles to the planning board for discussion at public hearings and their recommendation on the articles.
Wait, oh, second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right.
32 is fine.
Okay, item number 14 is to review and act to appoint 3 members to the Shrewsbury Cultural Council with 3-year terms set to expire on February 10th, 2027. We had a lot of interest in the Cultural Council, and the last time we had a lot of interest in the Cultural Council, we expanded the number of members on the Cultural Council because you can have up to 20, I believe. The decision at that time was to add, I believe, 3 additional members. Seems that that's a good number. I think, what are we at, 7, 9? Number? I don't remember exactly. Oh, it says, I think maybe it says it in here. Hold on a second.
Pull that up.
Either way, we're not going to increase the number of members on the Cultural Council because it does start to get to be too many.
Was this also, there's a term limit? Is it-
So for Cultural Council members, they can't serve more than 2 consecutive terms, and they have to step away and then they can come back. So we did have 3 members of the Cultural Council that had terms that expired on February 10th of 2024. We had 2 members who didn't seek reappointment because they were ineligible because of that statutory limitation. And then we have an incumbent, Barbara Luby, who expressed interest in being reappointed. There were then 7 additional residents who applied for the 3 available positions. And we did this voting using a spreadsheet that Mr. Dobson provided to board members. We were linked to the letters of interest from the people who applied. And then this was all dropped in, right when the meeting started. Justin tabulated the results, and the following individuals, Barbara Luby, Jennifer Webb, and Julie Parent, are those that will be appointed to the Cultural Council. But I do want to always, as always, thank everyone who did submit a letter of interest. Everyone's well qualified, and we would hope that they would continue to look for vacancies and ways to serve the community. Can't appoint everyone. It's always unfortunate. A motion?
I think before we do that, I would just like to request that, I agree with the process that we have. I think historically, these votes sort of took place and everybody went around the table and said who their 3 votes were, and then we went with majority. Now, to your point, Justin sent us a spreadsheet, but I filled out my spreadsheet, you filled out your spreadsheet, and this is where we find out what the majority was. But I do think from transparency, the minutes that we release should reflect what the votes were.
Okay.
I just think that's
Yeah.
the only appropriate thing to do.
Yeah, and I think part of the reason why we changed this is because when you're trying to appoint more than one person, it started to get really confusing. So it would be like, okay, I nominate so-and-so, and then someone would second, and then there's no clean way to do it, I guess is what I'm saying.
Yeah, it was totally clunky and inefficient, but I also think that this is a much more objective way of doing it. Because quite frankly, you could be influenced in real time, I think. So I think it's, 5 completely independent votes. So
Right. There's
I'm
never a
no
great way to
issue
do
with
it.
with the process at all.
Yeah.
I just think that,
Saying who each person chose.
I mean, that would be what I recommend.
Mm-hmm.
You guys can all opine on that.
Part of it too that I think through with this, and I know there's no perfect process, is like these are residents that are putting forth their names for a volunteer position, and I value each and every person, who does that. And with 7 applicants, there's bound to be someone who didn't get any, right?
It's a great point, because honestly, I think I would have taken all of them.
Right.
Any one of them.
I thought about
They
it.
were all outstanding. So that is a great point.
So I do think it's something that we can consider how we want to best do this. I think it's always difficult to walk that fine line between having votes that are just completely clumsy, and then also making sure that we are transparent. But again, the 3 that received the most votes were Barbara Luby, Jennifer Webb, and Julie Parent.
So move to appoint those members to the Shrewsbury Cultural Council for 3-year terms set to expire on February 10th, 2027.
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Item number 15 is to review and act to appoint 3 members to the Zoning Board of Appeals with 2-year terms set to expire on March 31st, 2026. We did have 3 incumbents, and they all had asked to be reappointed. And then we had 3 additional residents who applied to serve either as full ZBA members or alternates. And those people were, so the 3 incumbents were Mary Beth Lynch, Ann Ruffolo, and Peter Mulcahy. And then the 3 additional residents were Andrew Croxford, Christopher Reedy, and Francis Manella. So, again, we followed the same process, and the 3 people who received enough votes to be appointed are Mary Beth Lynch, Ann Ruffolo, and Peter Mulcahy. If there's any further discussion.
No, motion to appoint those members to those individuals to the Zoning Board of Appeals with 2-year terms set to expire on March 31st, 2026.
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, and then we had to do the alternates. So item number 16 is to review and appoint 3 associate members to the Zoning Board of Appeals with 1-year terms set to expire on March 31st, 2025. And I just will note that I think that, so I know Kevin Byrne was someone who's been an associate member. Megan Vincent and Timothy Fitzgerald were both appointed as these associate members just last year. I don't know that they've even had an opportunity to sit in at a meeting yet.
Mr. Fitzgerald has.
Okay. So again, we went through, we had Andrew Croxford, Christopher Reedy, and Francis Manella as new applicants. And the 3 that were chosen, based on our voting system, were Kevin Byrne, Megan Vincent, and Timothy Fitzgerald.
Motion to appoint those individuals to the Zoning Board of Appeals, as associate members to the Zoning Board of Appeals with 1-year terms set to expire on March 31st, 2025.
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
All right. Thank you to everyone who applied. It's, we need to have resident participation for these boards to operate, and appreciate the time that people are putting in if they're currently serving in the role, and also the people who put forth their names to apply to serve. Item number 17 is to review and act to authorize the chair to provide a signature of support for the local action units application by Harrington Avenue 34 LLC for 34 through 36 Harrington Avenue. So this is requesting that I, as the chair, sign this local action units application for this newly constructed mixed-use development. The 2 affordable units must be deed restricted and registered with the Executive Office of Housing and Livable Communities. And in order to submit the application, the developer requires a signature of support from the chair of the select board. So the project appeared before the planning board and was granted a special permit to construct approximately 1,000 square feet of retail space and an apartment building with 14 units, including 2 affordable units, 1 one-bedroom and 1 3-bedroom. And this did happen, was it a year ago, 2 years ago, 3? Yeah. So we're just doing a little housekeeping here with this item so that we can get these units listed as affordable and get the certificate of occupancy set as well. Anything else?
So I just note there's a couple more steps before they get the certificate of occupancy, and it will require state approval before they do get there. And once we receive that information, we'll go over to the planning board for issuance of that.
Okay. Any questions on that? Okay. A motion?
Motion to authorize the chair to provide signature as indicated.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, that brings us to correspondence. Item number 18 is an email dated March 9th, 2024 from Thomas Grisso for Candlewood Way regarding a comment on 142 Clinton Street proposal. I did respond to Mr. Grisso. This was an email that he had sent to the planning board, and he wanted to make sure that the select board had seen it as well. And I let him know that, we were aware and that many of us had seen his comments at the planning board public hearing. I know we do watch the meetings, even if we're not necessarily in the room at the time, and we were keeping an eye on the progress being made in the planning board process. Item number 19 is an email dated March 12th, 2024 from Kim Orr, Durand and Anastas Environmental Strategies, Inc., regarding interstate crossing EEE number 16605, notice of project change and draft environmental impact report. Item 20 is an email dated March 14th, 2024 from Gretchen Schultz Ellison, 24 Spring Street. Thank you for the Sustainability Committee. Gretchen is a member of Tipping Point. They are the Citizens Action Group who had originally requested that a Sustainability Committee be formed for the community. And then item number 21 is a letter dated March 22nd, 2022 from Nick Repecka, Highway Division Manager, regarding the street sweeping report. Okay, that brings us to executive session pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21A, for the purpose 3, to discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining or litigation if any open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the bargaining or litigating position of the public body, and the chair so declares. Julie V. Ross, Barry S. Polster, et al. Versus Town of Shrewsbury and Shrewsbury Haskell MMLLC, Land Court CA number 23, miscellaneous 000188. There is a motion in the packet that we would want to read. One second.
Sorry.
No, I'm trying to find the required motion. I have to read it, I'm pretty sure. Okay, so the board will now consider entering executive session in accordance with the open meeting law, MGL Chapter 30A, Section 21A, Purpose 3, to discuss strategy with respect to litigation, Julie V. Ross, Barry S. Polster, et al. Versus Town of Shrewsbury and Shrewsbury Haskell MLLC, because the chair finds that an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the litigation position of the board. May I have a motion to that effect?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, this is a roll call vote. Mrs. Flynn?
Yes.
Mr. Samia?
Aye.
Mrs. Conlon?
Aye.
Mr. Garcia?
Aye.
Myself, aye. The board will now enter executive session and will not reconvene in open session. Thank you and good evening.